All right, let's jump right into this explainer and uncover the incredibly dark truth hiding behind what is, let's be honest, widely considered the absolute easiest boss in Dark Souls history, Pinwheel. If you know the game, you already know exactly who I'm talking about, but today we're going to look way past that easy victory and dig into the lore that actually makes this character one of the most tragic and flat-out horrifying figures in the entire franchise.
Seriously, if you've played the game, you probably view Pinwheel as a giant piñata. There's this hilarious quote from a Reddit user that hits the nail on the head. There's only going to be 2 hits, me hitting you with my +15's Y-hander and you hitting the ground. It's so true, right? You strut into his boss room down in the catacombs, usually way over-leveled, you swing your massive sword maybe once or twice, and the fight is literally over before the boss music even hits its stride. You grab the Rite of Kindling and you're out of there.
But this begs a pretty massive and fascinating question. Why? Why on earth would the notoriously punishing developers at From Software intentionally design such a pathetically squishy boss? Was it just a mistake? A fluke? Or maybe a brief breather before you plunge into the absolute nightmare that is the Tomb of Giants? Or is there a deep, hidden narrative reason for his total frailty?
Section 1. The entity behind the masks. Who is Pinwheel? To figure out why he's so weak, we first have to strip away the gameplay mechanics and look at the horrifying thing underneath that heavy black cloak. Notice how the masks you win from him directly map to a family unit. When you finally beat Pinwheel, he drops one of 3 masks: the father, the mother, or the child. And look at their specific buffs. The mask of the father raises your equipment load, essentially symbolizing a father carrying the heavy burden of his family. The mother increases HP, which represents nurturing, protecting, and providing life. And the child boosts stamina recovery, just like the inexhaustible, playful energy of a kid. This heavily implies that Pinwheel isn't just one person. He's 3 distinct individuals literally fused together.
And guys, this isn't just some poetic metaphor. It is absolute, sheer horror. If you turn your game audio way up the second you drop into his boss arena, you can actually hear a chilling background track. It's 3 distinct, agonizing voices all whispering over one another. You hear a low voice, a middle voice, and a high voice. A father, a mother, and a child. They're pleading, apologizing, and constantly whispering things like, "We will never die," and "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry."
Section 2. The Stolen Power and Nito's Necromancy. So how in the world did a regular family end up fused together into a multi-armed nightmare living at the bottom of a crypt? Well, the lore explicitly tells us through item descriptions that Pinwheel is a necromancer who stole a great power from Gravelord Nito. But the community is kind of split on why he actually did it. Basically, you've got 2 massive theories here. The first is the occult rebellion, suggesting this was some ill-fated political plot by occult followers trying to destroy the gods themselves. But then you have the other theory, which is much more intimate. A desperate, grieving father stealing the secrets of necromancy just to revive his dead wife and child. Now, while the occult theory definitely has merit, the environmental storytelling scattered around the catacombs heavily points us toward the absolute tragedy of the father.
Section 3. A tragic backstory and the fall of a family.
If we actually pay attention to the clues surrounding the statues scattered throughout the catacombs, a remarkably tragic timeline emerges. Following the analysis from lore hunter Hawkshaw, we witness a terrifying sequence of events. Basically, the father and mother were likely high priests of the catacombs. At some point centuries ago, they got greedy and stole the power of the Gravelord from Nito. But Nito is the god of death, right? He's patient, so he waited. He waited until the mother was pregnant and then hit them with a blight curse, poisoning the unborn child. Seriously, you can even find statues down there of a mother with a child's face on her belly covered in spikes. It's incredibly grim. So the mother and child die during childbirth, and in the immediate aftermath, in a frantic, grief-stricken panic, the father attempts to use that stolen, archaic magic to revive them. But it goes terribly, terribly wrong, accidentally fusing their 3 bodies together into the monstrosity we see today.
This completely changes how we view him. Necromancy is all about discovering arcane knowledge through the veil of death, and that is exactly why we find Pinwheel in a room literally overflowing with books and scrolls. He isn't some fierce warrior prepping for a fight. He is a frantic necromancer. He's spent centuries desperately researching a way to reverse his horrific mistake, trying to unfuse their bodies and restore his family to what they once were.
Section 4. The Macabre Puppeteer and His Dark Methods.
But being alone in the dark with your fused, dead family for centuries takes a toll. This desperate research led to some deeply morbid practices. To protect himself while he studied in the pitch black, he needed guards, And his solution for the skeletons roaming his lair is incredibly messed up. He severs the hands and feet off the skeletons to render them powerless, right? Ensuring they can never turn on him. Then, he actually ties their handless skeletal arms to steel rods and attaches magic lanterns to the ends. He is quite literally acting as a macabre puppeteer, animating and controlling these mutilated corpses with magic lanterns serving as puppet strings, all just to protect his agonizing research.
And man, this totally recontextualizes his gameplay mechanics. Of course he dies in 2 hits. When you run into that room, you aren't fighting a seasoned, battle-hardened god. You are fighting a squishy, grief-stricken wizard who has spent hundreds of years huddled in the dark, reading books, while physically weighed down by the literal corpses of his dead wife and child. Pinwheel is all brains and 0 brawn. He's a broken man, not a fighter.
Section 5. Just an illusion? Smoke and mirrors.
It all ties together perfectly, right? It turns a total meme of a boss into a deeply heartbreaking story. But hold on, because there is one final, mind-bending twist to this lore that throws a wrench into literally everything we've just uncovered. Think about these massive anomalies. First, the merchant patches somehow sells Pinwheel's unique masks. How is that even possible if they are the literal faces of his fused family? Second, Pinwheel's entire fighting style is based entirely on teleportation, clones, and theatrical misdirection. And the real kicker? A corpse hidden in his domain holds the Dark Moon Seance Ring, an item that pledges direct allegiance to Gwendolyn, the god known entirely for creating massive, world-altering illusions.
These clues point to a pretty terrifying alternative theory. What if Pinwheel's pathetic weakness isn't just because he's a sad scholar, but because he's a manufactured victory, an illusion designed specifically by Gwendolyn to stroke your ego? Think about it. It makes you feel powerful, manipulating you into pushing forward to fulfill the god's plans. He gives you the right of kindling so easily, almost as if he was planted there to just hand it to you on a silver platter.
Which leaves us with a truly unsettling question. If the easiest boss in Dark Souls is nothing more than a magical puppet acting out a theatrical tragedy to trick you, who is actually pulling the strings in the deep dark of the catacombs? Did you ever actually meet the real Pinwheel at all? It just goes to show, in this universe, even the easiest victories are shrouded in absolute darkness. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious, and whatever you do, don't go hollow out there.